Anyone for a big-time wide receiver? Anyone for two big-time wide receivers? What do you think, Florida State fans? Welcome into FSU Live right here at the Voice of College Football, coming your way on a Wednesday night as we always do. 213 consecutive weeks, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Chris Frazier right next to me. Spear Addicts. Appreciate Chris being here. Get on over to Spear Addicts. We'll be dropping the link in the chat. Is that Logan Robinson?
Whoa.
Oh, Logan's here.
I couldn't
Logan,
pull
what's
a
going on
Jason.
tonight? Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Mark. Good to see you as well, Chris. Couldn't pull a Jason and just completely go, out of nowhere on you. But it's been just a little busy the last month or so. But glad to be back. It's a good time to be back and talking some Florida State football. And we're looking at student directories and everything. We're just being the regular FSU Twitter and being freaks and ridiculous, just going way out of reach for doing crazy things for our followers. So we're here.
Everybody catch up with Logan in about an hour, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. That's right here on YouTube, right?
Yes, it is.
Right here on YouTube, Noel Game Day. And Logan, I'm just kind of curious, while you were looking around on these student directories, did you come across anything interesting?
Yeah, I think everybody from every outlet had that like bookmarked on their phones or reminder to just continuously look up Destyn Hill's name. But yes, he showed up on the student directory. Nothing is official yet, but just going off of that, it just means that there's some optimistic news that we should be hearing something official getting closer to the later end of the week after this last semester just wrapped up. The other one is about to begin during the summer, and so Florida State is feeling pretty good, I think, on their end of things, knowing that he's in the student directory. And I think for a lot of fans that have been waiting almost 2 years for this, they're like, they still don't believe it. I don't think anybody's going to believe it till maybe they see him with their own two eyes, because right now nobody's going to believe maybe a photo, or it's going to have to be like a live stream or something until someone believes it, or someone that's going to say that they photoshopped it. But yeah, it's great to see that his name is in the student directory. But there's a whole that starts a whole nother discussion of a lot of things, of how does he look, what happened type of deal. There's gonna be a lot of question marks about that, but it just depends on how deep we'll get into it. But it's a good week for Florida State fans, I think, and it could be even better later down the road. Well, I know we'll talk about that as well.
Hey, if he's enrolled and he's got a uniform on and he's showing up at practice, then it is interesting to be able to find out, if we ever do, what happened, what was the deal. Sure, all that's interesting, but once he's on the roster and ready to roll, that's all that counts at that point. James, what's going on tonight?
Not much. Was at little practice trying to make sure I secure our top quarterback commit for 2025, and I got two more commits that I'm trying to make sure we get. I can just recruit in my backyard, so that's what I had to go. Had to make sure these guys are making right decisions.
James recruiting for Norvell and company. Well done. All right, Chris. Destyn Hill at this point may have forgotten how to catch a football, but if we get everything that was advertised and everything that he showed in high school, what's he going to look like in a Florida State uniform?
I think at this point, as long as he ends up in a Florida State uniform, people are going to be ecstatic, regardless of his body type or how rusty he may or may not be. But from everything that we've heard, or everything that I've heard, he's been constantly working on his craft. He hasn't fell off the table. I don't know. I didn't see him practice. I didn't see him training, but I've been told that that's what he's been doing. I just got a question for everybody. I'm going to just start this off the right way. I think that Florida State and Mike Norvell has been taking some things personal, not Colorado taking our players, but, the West Seminoles or Florida State, whatever, Colorado, the Buffalo Noles and all that. What happens if Norvell does the splits and just punches Deion right between his legs and says, well, we're going to unretire the number 2 and give it to Destyn Hill. Just wondering what y'all's thoughts are on that.
Personally, I think it should have been unretired. I can give it to a deserving. I give it to a deserving player. If that's the difference between us getting a recruit is Deion's number, then I'm giving Deion's number away ASAP, and giving it to both sides of the ball. So, but yeah, I'm all for that.
It'll cause a lot of chaos, that's for sure. It definitely cause a lot of chaos, which I like because that generates clicks. And there's nothing better than getting some clicks in the offseason. You know that, Mark. There's nothing better than getting some good clicks. But nonetheless, this whole weekend is going to bring clicks for everybody. Like this right here, while we're talking about it, this will be clipped up and will be put as a cut-up video, and it will do very well just because Destyn Hill generates a lot of views no matter what on articles, YouTube, everything. And it's crazy that it's done this the last 2 years. It's incredible that a player that we haven't even seen play in a uniform in garnet and gold dons this much attention from us looking at a high school kid. Well, no longer a high school kid, but back in the day, just the whole curiosity of what this kid could look like. We've got people searching the mom's Instagram, the whole family's Instagrams, their Facebooks, diving in. I'm not saying I'm one of those people. But if you were able to have the first news of Destyn Hill and potentially arriving at Florida State, you would be the god of Twitter and all of social media. So right now, everybody's just on watch on if he arrives. Into the more, I'm surprised that a couple other outlets, James, don't have a full-on live stream going on. Like we don't have a full-on booth out there right now. I'm a little disappointed that we don't have a live stream GoPro session going on, but maybe it's for the best, honestly. They get a little bit too freaky, that and going and stalking people at hotels. Little too much. But yeah, we're going to see. We're playing the waiting game, baby. It's fun. It's exciting, something fun for Florida because it's also a nice addition to that wide receiver room, which it impacts quite a bit. We talked about him, James, a long time ago about how well of a player he is and elusive, and he's a different kind of wide receiver. He's a hybrid. He's got good vision. He's got the speed. He's got a lot of characteristics of a guy back in the day with P-Dubs. So there was always excitement about this player, and that's what went into us continuously talking about him the last 2 years, no matter what.
Yeah, James, if he shows up right, Destyn Hill shows up right, physically, mentally, the whole deal, what kind of player is he from what you've seen?
I think he's the guy that we're kind of looking for as far as that explosive guy that comes in. That's kind of player he was. His highlight film was full of making plays, and I always tell kids, I'm like, it doesn't matter if you catch for 1,000 yards or 2,000 yards. It all depends on how it looks. And when you look at his highlight film, it's very entertaining. When I'm watching a highlight film, if you go catch my eye in the first 2 or 3 plays, I'm not going to pay attention to it. And his highlight film is definitely one of those in which you're caught up early and you're going to pay attention. I'm actually going to probably go back and, now that it seems real, I'm going to go back and pay attention to it a little bit more. Watch it again just for my own consumption. But I don't expect much from him this year, but if he's able to get back into the swing of things, and because now with the NCAA being able to play not 4 consecutive games or like the first 4 games of the season, and then you break your red shirts, but as long as you don't play over 4 games, and I think they took away the bowl game for that as well, correct? So technically it's 5 games that a kid can play. I can see him, this year, getting a little rust in some of the games like the University of North Alabama or something like that, and then maybe next year we're excited. We're still excited about what that name could mean and potentially bring to Florida State.
If Jason was here to give it a shot against Miami, saying that Destyn Hill would probably get some time against Miami as well. A lot of players did get some PT last year against Miami down there. But, yeah, that's where I miss Jason right there. That'd be a good 5-minute rant about that.
Yeah, we could get a rundown on Destyn Hill's potential stats against the schedule this season. But we will save that for sometime this summer.
Yeah.
Well, another player is getting almost as much attention right now from Florida State fans as Destyn Hill, and it's another wide receiver, and it's former Michigan State wide receiver in the transfer portal, of course. Keon Coleman caught 58 balls and 7 touchdowns last year, Logan. So what's your feel there? And he took a trip to Tallahassee.
Yeah, he did. And, he's keeping his options open and looking around, but it was good to see Florida State be the first to get him on campus and show him around and look at the facilities and, talk some NIL, because that's a major thing in any player's mind, it feels like right now and where we're at in college football. But for Keon Coleman specifically, I think it's a little bit of NIL, but it's really about getting himself in a good offense behind a good quarterback. And I think, just looking at a few spots that he's looking at and visiting, I think Florida State does have a good edge here on some of the other competition. And I think too, with sitting down with Jordan Travis, you've got Trey Benson, Jaheim Bell, there's a variety of different things Florida State can utilize. Keon, is it like devastating that he doesn't decide to go with Florida State? I don't think so, but it's just icing on the cake. It just makes your offense a little bit more explosive, more reliable. And, he sits right there with Johnny Wilson, and, not to sleep on Kentron Portier, because I think a lot of national outlets that haven't done their homework yet on Kentron are going to find out this season, but we're kind of overlooking Portier and what he can do. With adding Keon into this offense, it's a lethal threat just with Link too. And we saw what Johnny Wilson was able to do last year with just his first year with Jordan Travis. And I'm really interested to see if this were to go in Florida State's favor, just the disruption what Florida State could do explosively down the field. We saw that with Keon Coleman last year for Michigan State and what he was able to do in one-on-one opportunities. And that's the thing for defensive coordinators. They've got to prepare for also Johnny Wilson on the other side, and then an up-and-coming Kentron Portier. You got Ja'Kai Douglas that's got the explosiveness as well. So it's just really going to depend, I think, for Keon and the end all be all, because this is a guy that's got a couple of years left. I think it's gonna come down to quarterback play. But then, if you're looking at that and he's got a couple of years left, then what do you say about 2024 for him? And so I think that's something that is probably in the back of his head that he's thinking about as he moves forward and trying to figure out his next destination. But I think Florida State's in a good spot. But, there's going to be some other schools out there that probably need him more than maybe Florida State needs him.
And I wonder is it Florida State that did something right, or is it because his former quarterback committed to Auburn is why he canceled his visit to Auburn on Sunday? He ended up staying at Florida State longer than he was expected to, because he was supposed to be at Auburn on Sunday, and he completely canceled that visit and ended up going straight over to Ole Miss, which obviously when any of your guys go to Ole Miss, they're going to visit a head coach that's probably the best car salesman in the country. And with that being said, I still think Florida State has an edge over Ole Miss for a couple of reasons. One, quarterback play in Jordan. Two, and you're going to get open a lot regardless. As long as you're at Florida State, you're going to get open quite a bit because they can't double team everyone. And if Coleman and Johnny and Douglas and any of these guys are all on the field at the same time, there's just not enough. There's not enough corners out there that are over 6 foot tall. They can cover each and every one of these guys. So I think the more dynamic plays, the more highlights that you would say that they'd want to put up, the more NFL film that you would want. You would see more of it if you were at Florida State versus some of the other places that are looking at him. So I think if you want to be one of those guys, you do it at Florida State. If you want to be the guy, maybe you don't come to Florida State, but I don't think that's his MO. I think he's looking just to put up NFL type film so he can get to the next level. I think Florida State leads the way with Coleman right now.
It would just be an embarrassment of riches if we get him. I would not change my prediction of how many games we win if we don't get him. If we get him, I just feel more secure and I feel a little bit stronger. But I think it's the type of wide receiver that I really believe that Florida State truly needs is more of a Pokey Wilson type guy. But I do believe Coleman does give you another sure hand possession type receiver And that's why I don't think I think he may want to be the number one, but I think also if his camp is talking to him and being truly understanding of the situation, you need to go to you need to go to a school where you're not the only sole focus. And I do agree with you, Chris. From what I was hearing when he first hit the portal, part of the reason why was because he wasn't confident in the quarterback situation that he had the previous year. So, but yeah, I do. I kind of would, and Logan, you can probably help me with this because I don't. How are we able to talk so freely about NILs right now? Because did the rule change that you can't negotiate NIL deals until you're actually on campus, or am I under the impression that that's no? I'm not naive. I'm just asking so that I can know why it's being reported in the manner in which it's being reported.
Shoot, the NIL space for that is that's a whole different world for me. We're gonna have to get someone on that can give us some clarification on that, but I know what you mean though.
Because I think if I don't again, I'm not gonna ever say that Florida State is doing something that nobody else is doing. But I'm also never gonna self-snitch on myself as a reporter. So I'm just gonna say that Mike and them have done a really, really good job of making sure that Keon Coleman understands his worth in this offensive system, and and maybe some of his other people are making sure they do their due diligence and making sure his off-field stuff is taken care of. But that's all I'm asking.
Talking Florida State football with all of you each and every Wednesday, 6 Eastern. We got Chris Frazier here from Spear Addicts, Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day. Catch Logan in just a few minutes, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Top of the hour, Noel Game Day right here on YouTube. Great show that we'll talk about here in a few minutes. Big game, James Coleman, of course, Den Media Group. And did you guys happen to see these recruiting budget numbers that were all over the place this week? I'm looking at the ACC right here. What we've got is Clemson. So we've got a row that is breaking down the 2022 spending, and then we've got the average of the previous 5 fiscal years. Clemson in the lead, no big surprise there, and then it drifts down from there. Let me get this out of the way. We got Florida State in 5th in the ACC this past season. And the previous 5 years, it looks like they would have been 2nd to Clemson. So Clemson's spending a whole lot more money. Now, we know that the way numbers get manipulated, a lot of things could be in play here. There could be a certain reason why a school had to spend a lot more that particular year or didn't, or the previous fiscal year, they front-loaded money. There are all sorts of factors involved, but you got to think that 5-year total you would think would be fairly accurate there. You guys have any response to where FSU stands there?
That's true for Florida State and the numbers are correct, then that's nice. I mean, it goes to show that budgeting's doing pretty well. I mean, I think a lot of things changed. You had the Coburn and then going to Alfred. A few changes here, but just looking at compared to your biggest competition, the ACC, what you're expecting going into the season 2023, Clemson having 3.1, then Florida State getting close to $1 million a year. It's quite a bit of a difference. Quite a bit of a difference there. And, I think Florida State too has pushed a lot on the transfer side. We've seen success there. So more schools are on the high school market, and that causes a lot more of some money being spent. But, Florida State is a lot of things have changed since Alfred's gotten to the helm here. And I think that's had to do with helping save some money on the side, but they've also, I think that they're putting money into the business, and that's what Mike Norvell had a game plan coming into Florida State to do. And luckily, Alfred got the job with being the athletic director, and I think both of them they're on the same page with a lot of things, but it is reinvesting into the university, into the football program specifically, into recruiting. And it's good to know that Florida State, at least if those numbers are fully accurate, if we're saying fully accurate numbers, that's ridiculous compared to what Clemson is doing, and Florida State is kind of getting into the back in their groove on the recruiting side of things. Definitely looking at that 2024 class, they are in their groove. It's very nice to see that you're able to save some more money for other things, and now with NIL being related and the Florida system being able to allow coaches to get involved here, it's it's smart business to me. It looks like.
Yeah, either Florida State's getting a hell of a bargain on what they're spending on getting guys here, or because of the 2022 season, like Logan kind of alluded to there, we were more in the transfer portal at that time in phase, so we probably didn't spend a crazy amount of money on recruiting, but very curious on how much more was spent on those 2024 class. So looking forward to those numbers coming out. But I think regardless of what's being spent, Florida State seems to be doing a really good job because of what classes we've landed. We were heavy in the 2022 class for offensive linemen. So that was very much needed. And now we're going after a lot of skill players in the 24 class. 23 was a mixture of a couple of defensive players, wide receivers, stuff like that. But I'm curious on what the 24 numbers are versus those.
What do you think goes into this, James? Are you taking anything away from, again, the first column is the 2022 spending on recruiting, and the second column is the 5-year average of the 5 previous fiscal years?
Yeah, I just think we had to play catch up, and I think from a budgeting perspective, and I think now we're spending money. Like Florida State has zero problem spending money, but I do think when I listened to how Norvell recruits and recruited before he came in, it was a situation where they do a lot of analysis and they match personalities for what they're doing. And he also has been trying to take advantage, as everybody's alluded to, of the transfer portal. This is an unprecedented time. You can actually flip your roster with talent if you do it the right way, you do it strategic. And that's because the APR is gone. Now, I believe after the 2024 season, APR comes back into effect. And as we kind of already set our roster the way we've done, and we've done pretty decent in high school recruiting, or we're getting better in high school recruiting, now you'll start to see even more money being poured into the recruiting front and what they're doing. But I had a friend who broke it down to me, though, too. And if you look at the past few classes, you go 250 miles north, you go 250 miles to the west, or probably more like 180 because Jacksonville isn't that much far. Go 180 to the east, 250 to the west, and then you go south. That's all you need to recruit. So you can actually, like, we're the benefits of being in a hotbed. All South Georgia, Moultrie, Albany, all those places, Thomasville are having good recruits. Tallahassee, Big Bend is having a renaissance that they haven't had since I was in high school. Jacksonville, tons of talent that you can just come here and just find the guys. And there's only two real battles. You have Georgia, but that's just Georgia being successful right now. And then you have Florida. Those are the only real guys that you just got to go head to head with. So I think that could also account for why the money isn't as high.
Appreciate everybody being here. Leave those comments and questions in the chat. You catch our attention if you leave a super chat, and we will continue on here at the Voice of College Football every Wednesday, 6 Eastern. Logan's here. I know he's got to go here pretty soon. Logan, anything before you need to wrap up? Anything else that you've got for us?
Nothing really much going on. Just getting ready for the show tonight at 7 and going to talk Destyn Hill. And I just get so tired. But we're going to talk Destyn Hill, and then we're going to talk Keon Coleman, also Jalen Key. He looks like it's going down to Florida State and Alabama. So that's a bigger importance to me than Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman's definitely icing on the cake. Nice thread, but Florida State desperately needs a safety with a little bit of experience too. So not saying Jalen Key is going to be a starter over any of those two guys ahead of him with Dent and Brown, but you got to start building some depth, and you would like to do it. You have to do it with experience out of the transfer portal. So we'll keep an eye on that and the decision that Key makes. But yeah, just having a few discussions, and we saw Micah Pittman pick Utah. That seemed like that was planned for a good long while. Bishop Thomas going to join Deion Sanders. Matthew Cleveland on the basketball side going to Miami. Just funny stuff going on right now. It's been a very entertaining offseason. I'm here for it. We're getting closer and closer to fall with all these storylines. So sign me up.
Before you head out, I'm looking at a Florida State win total of 9 and Clemson at 9, but I was told, this is the one I'm looking up, but I was told this week that Florida State was at 10 and Clemson at 9.5.
Yeah. I saw one earlier today too. I think we're putting a piece out on that. I'm trying to find what I threw in here. No, never mind. Well, I did. I don't have it up on me right now, but the ACC odds, I saw that, and Florida State's favored right there ahead of Clemson to the ACC conference.
Mark,
Bet online.
Per DraftKings,
Yep.
2023 win totals, FSU is at 10, Clemson is at 9.5.
Okay.
That's the one I think you were looking for.
Yeah, that's the one I was looking for. All right.
Seems accurate. I think we're right there on the same page, everybody on the show, with agreeing, 9.5 seems good. I mean, it's a strong schedule. It's not an easy one. Definitely in that first beginning of the stretch of the season, it's no joke. It doesn't play any games. So, but for Vegas to feel, I think that feels great if Vegas is feeling that strongly. I mean, they obviously saw some answers last year, but it's just because of the experience coming back. That's specifically what it is. That's what Vegas is relying on, and maybe a few additions, but it's specifically all the stars coming back for 2023 is what Vegas is riding on. And you really ride on Travis having another healthy year. I mean, it's great to see Tate Rodemaker making some moves, but you got to hope for another healthy season. I think that's something we'll talk about later on the offseason. He's got to be healthy to make a successful run. And Florida State's offensive line has got to do that. We saw some progress last year, but you lost an experienced guy with Dylan Gibbons, but you're beefed up. You added to the transfer portal. Those guys got to build chemistry, and it wasn't built fully yet during the spring, kind of off and on there, but they've got to build it during this offseason and to protect Jordan Travis, because if Jordan Travis goes down, this is a different Vegas odds.
What I can't necessarily figure out is, so the Florida State game at Clemson, the early point spread on that game is, I'm seeing Clemson 2.5 and I'm seeing Clemson 3. Okay, we know that home field advantage is generically 3 points. So basically they're calling this a dead even game at this point. Well, they just put Clemson at 9.5 and they put Florida State at 10. Clemson's got South Carolina out of conference, but Florida State's got to deal with LSU and Florida. Now, the Gators aren't going to be a great team. We don't expect that, but still, they're a capable out of conference game. And I can't imagine before I look at the conference schedules that they're that different. So with Clemson playing at home as a slight favorite and having an easier non-conference schedule, why they would put them at 9.5 and Florida State at 10. Those two don't seem to mesh.
I think it's more so. I think everybody, if you twisted somebody's arm right now, there's not a pundit that would not, like, if you twisted their arm, like even your Clemson guys that come on and you do the Clemson show, Mark, I love those guys. But if you really told them, hey, I need you to tell the truth, or I need you, we're gonna put your mortgage on the line for this Florida State Clemson game, I think they wouldn't be opposed to betting Florida State at this juncture. And that's because Florida State returns so many things that look sure. And even though I like Klubnik off of what I saw him play against North Carolina. I did not like what I saw in the bowl game. So we don't know. I think they're better. We also know that they have TCU's former offensive coordinator But if anybody follows TCU closely, we all know that their head coach is kind of like people having their questions about Alex Atkins in a Mike Norvell offense. It's reasonable.
Yeah.
That TCU system wasn't his system.
Yeah.
But you have that coming. You also don't have the wide receivers that Clemson's been known to have when they had their generational talent at quarterback. I mean, those wide receivers all got drafted. They're all really, really good. Actually, going back to just the few seasons before they kind of took over from Florida State, when they had Sammy Watkins and they've had some cats at wide receiver. This has been and then even on defense, like we've seen Florida State compete with them with arguably lesser talent. So what happens now when Florida State has the upper hand, has the coaches, returns a lot? That's why I think a lot of people still have Florida State at 10, but the respect of the Clemson brand gives them 9.5, but you just don't feel like they're ACC. This is as of this juncture, we don't feel like this is an ACC championship Clemson team. Now, it may change, obviously, I think we played in week 4. That might change, but like as of right now, we can't pretend that this is, just like I won't pretend that this is Florida State dynasty era team yet until I see. I can't pretend that this is the Clemson team that bumped Florida State away from after they won back-to-back national, after they won back-to-back ACCs and with the national title appearance in that time spread.
So, James, if you're following me, though, I'm not questioning anything that you just said. I'm questioning their logic. They're contradicting themselves to a certain extent with FSU at 10, Clemson at 9.5, and making Clemson a favorite at home against Florida State. So they're giving them the lean to win that game, and they also have an easier non-conference schedule. So that doesn't add up.
It doesn't matter. But I think you sound like Chris right now, and you're right. Like because it doesn't make sense. I'm just going off of I'm trying to make sense of something that does. I'm with you. I'm trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. It just means they're not as sold on Clemson as they feel, but they're Clemson until Florida State proves us wrong. But I think they're going to lose that. They're going to be the ACC runner-up. Potentially Gator Bowl bound. Personally, I hope they're Gator Bowl bound because I just had some business dealings that would help me tremendously. But I just don't think this is not me even trying to be disrespectful to Dabo, which I typically am, but I'm not being disrespectful. I just don't think that this is the best Clemson. Like Clemson hasn't hit in recruiting like they were hitting when they were in their stride. They haven't been hitting like with the development. There's one player that I'm afraid of, but I'm not sure I'm afraid of him anymore without what's the dude's name? The quarterback is at Washington State now. I'm not sure. I think he's at Washington State. Or was it Oregon State?
Oregon State, DJ.
Oregon State. Yeah, DJ. Ukulele. Yeah. You have to account for his legs. I don't have to account for his legs. Klubnik doesn't. I'm not afraid of Klubnik running the ball. Now, if I had to account for Klubnik's legs, then little baby Christian McCaffrey they got over there is a good running back. But that's what killed us when you think about the Clemson game last year.
2 years in a row. Yep, they haven't been able to figure out how to stop him. That's going to be the biggest discussion, probably, of the biggest threat for Florida State. Their opponents this year is Shipley. Fuller don't know how to stop him. They can't figure it out. I mean, he's a really good running back. I mean, you got to add that on there. But Dabo's got their number on, allowing Shipley to do whatever he kind of wants to do to Florida State. But that's got to be fixed. But hopefully they're working on that this offseason.
Yeah, should be interesting. Should be an interesting one. Chris, is there a game on the schedule that scares you outside of the obvious ones? So the obvious ones, and when I mean scared, I don't mean that you're scared that Florida State's going to lose, but you know what I mean. That you respect the opponent more so than we've got LSU and Clemson. Let's check those off. Is there somebody that you think could jump up?
Me personally, I think you got to watch out for Pitt because you're playing at Pitt, and Pitt's been playing us well for the past couple of years. I understand they've lost some guys, but Pitt could be a trap game if you're not careful, if you don't really pay attention to what they're doing in the beginning of the season before you play them. So that would be the one that I would say that you got to play at your best. Quick thing, real quick. Stephen Dix Jr. He just committed to Marshall today. So that's another one gone, but he didn't go to Colorado because everybody said that's where he was going. He went to Marshall. Also, one of the fans had asked about any updates on Key or Coleman. We spoke about Coleman just a while ago, and Logan brought up briefly that Key is a more of a need, which is 100% correct. He's the need where Coleman's a want. But Key will be announcing where he's going this weekend. I released that yesterday on the YouTube member page, but now everyone's putting it out that he is announced that he will be announcing where he's committing to this weekend.
Something to keep a close eye on for sure. Need to. That's major Key. Haha. No, gotta have depth there. Gotta have depth. You need to. It was really scary to see how thin it got quickly for Florida State. And, I don't think Amarion Cooper wanted to play safety, but they were going to test it out and played around with it this spring. And that's just not what he wanted to do. And he dealt with injuries, yes, but they wanted to get him back at safety, but, never had crazy flashes. And, I know Mike Norvell gave some good coach speak about him, but, nothing really impressed anybody that was watching at practice. So he wants to go find a different opportunity elsewhere. And that's just the case when Florida State's able to bring in some cornerbacks like Fintrell, Azare Thomas, that's improving and developing well. And you already know who you got right there with the first team. So it was a bad situation. And Travis J been for a nice spring from him, but, has to deal with injury and don't get to see him Seminole showcase. And, it just really tough situation that, Coach Surtain has got to figure out this offseason. And if he ends up picking Alabama, I don't think I want to discuss this on our show tonight, but I don't want Florida State to be kind of in desperate mode and you bring in Key. Yeah, you bring in a little bit of experience, but I think there's some better out there. I really do. And, we'll see what Coach Surtain can do, but, you would like to just add a depth piece, but I don't think this is an impactful player. It's just kind of, I guess Florida State is desperate, but it's just not the talent level that I think that they should be going, that I want to get in the system. I mean, I don't want to just say a bad player or anything, but I think there's better out there, but you're at a desperate spot, and that's what you got yourself into. So got to fix it this offseason.
Logan, thanks for being here. Thanks for making it work. Everybody catch Logan directly after our show. Hop on over to Noel Game Day right here on YouTube and check out Logan and more Florida State football talk.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, James. Y'all have a good rest of y'all's week, and I'll see y'all soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. Yeah, Chris, catch us up on anything else that's out there in regards to recruiting, big weekends coming up, transfer portal included, all of that.
Yeah, I heard most of what you said. There was an echo. I think the one thing is all I hear is reverb coming back. One thing that I will say is that Papuchis has been doing a hell of a job over the past couple of weeks, because multiple sources, which I was talking about him on I think it was the last show we did, 4-star Dylan Stevenson, which is one of the top edge rushers in the country for high school, has now everyone's starting to flip his crystal ball prediction. Everyone thinks he's coming to Florida State, which is huge for Florida State on that edge, because everyone knows what we're losing this year. After this season, we're going to lose a lot of guys. So for Papuchis to be landing him is awesome. We got JUCO safety Ashlyn Barker. He will be visiting FSU over the weekend on the 12th through the 14th, which is big as well. I think he's the top JUCO player in the nation. So it seems like we're like what Logan was just talking about, that we're kind of in desperate mode. And, if he does commit to Alabama over us, what does that mean for Florida State? Do we just start taking anybody at that time? Because Florida State's been extremely nitpicky throughout this portal process. We haven't just went after any and everybody. One, we can't, because we don't have that many scholarship spots left. But also the reason being is because you don't want to just go get anybody. Norvell has such a particular player that he goes for other than just their play on the field. It's like this there's this huge character that he's looking for. And if you're not meeting the characteristics, he really won't look at you regardless of how good you are on the field. So we're doing a really good job recruiting for the 2024 class. A lot of people freaked out with KJ Bolden because he put out his top 5. Well, everyone thought it was his top 5. What it really was is he has 5 official visits set up, and he dropped those. And then he had to reiterate to everyone that that wasn't his top 5 schools. That was the 5 visits that he had set up. Because the NCAA changed the rule. It went in effect, I think, May 8th. So now high school players have unlimited amount of official visits they can have. You can still only have 1 to each school unless there's a head coaching change. So if there's a head coaching change, a player could possibly officially visit that school more than once. But now there's an unlimited amount of official visits. Where used to, you can only have 5 official visits, which means you pick your 5 schools, those are your official visits. That's where it's going. Now the NCAA has made it unlimited, so they can have as many official visits as they want. KJ's expected to set up his official visit at Florida State. We're doing a really good job with Charles Lesher III. He's been speaking very highly of Pat Surtain and also what Florida State's doing. I look for him to make a decision in May, early June. You've got a lot of guys that are going to start making it known verbally where they're going to be going. So keep a lookout for JoJo Trader as well. JoJo's been speaking very highly of Florida State as well. He's very excited for what the wide receivers and the type of offense that Norvell has put together at Florida State. He sees himself doing really big things there. I think people are a little bit worried about Coleman because there's been such a big emphasis put on his name because of how good of a player he is coming out of Michigan State. But I think it's much more of a problem if Florida State doesn't land a safety, so to speak, than if we don't land Coleman. I think we have a big shot at landing both, but don't freak out if you don't land Coleman. I think we go into a set of desperation if we don't land Key at the safety position because there's not very many safeties out there, so it means we're going to have to wait all the way until the next portal session opens, and then we got to hope that someone that is decent safety-wise comes into play, because if not, we're going to be very thin at that position going into the season.
Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football, Florida State Live every Wednesday at 6 Eastern Time. And recognize that a lot of you were asking about players and situations and topics that we've already covered. You can catch what you missed as soon as the video posts. So get on back here next Wednesday at 6 Eastern. Be on time. You don't miss anything. Or if you do, no big deal. You can always watch what you missed. I am out of topics. You guys have anything else? Where else do we need to go with this? Anything else?
Well, I just got a chance today, and I got a chance to spend about 20 minutes with Coach Woodson, former DB coach at Florida State, current DB coach at Arkansas. And I got a chance to get some perspective about different things that have happened going on with him, his feelings. Like he just talked about how, man, this is going to be a special year for Florida State. And he said, he just had to do what was best for him. But he was like, man, everybody is going to take that step, and just talking about, his opinions and thinking about Johnny Wilson just needing that this year to become that dominant wide receiver that he could be with the body that he has. Trey Benson, trying to find, some of the concerns that I've talked about before in this game. Very few times have you really seen it successful when it's one running back. Like Trey Benson with the knee, it's going to be hard for him to take the load. That's why you got to make sure who's going to be that number 2. Can Keziah Holmes be that? Who can it be CJ? Could it be Rodney Hill? Could it be the freshman coming in from an island? I think is really, really good. who will be the guy that could be that second person, but Trey Benson being that man. But he talked about the back four, and he talked about the corners, and he says the 1 to 2 we have. And he didn't even mention Greedy Vance, which was crazy, but he mentioned everybody that he mentioned Jarian, Cypress, Azariah. I'm missing somebody. But it's not Knowles. Ronaldo Green. That's it. So he's like, all you need is 4. He said, if you got 4 guys, man, you got some cats. And he just talked about if Akeem Dent is healthy, you're going to be really good at the safety spot. He said, but he's like, that might be the only place where you're not 100% sure up. But it was one of those things. And then he also gave me some insight on Travis Hunter. So for those so Chris, if you didn't like Deion, you're really not going to like Deion now. So Deion told Travis Hunter when he visited Jackson State to come to Florida State. Go break all my records, son. Go be great. Like really feeling like, man, he got the best interest in heart, in mind. And then he said, come on, let's make history. After that, he's like, I'm going to let you be me here. You'll break the records here and then it's just, so everybody was just like, oh my God. And then they're like, they hated him. And then after that, it was, they were like, okay, fine. For the greater good. HBCU ball, great. And then he leaves to go to Colorado, and everybody's like, he just ripped off the wound again. So, but it was cool to see a guy who left. And that's just, to me, it was the best thing about it was if he didn't like Mike Norvell, Woodson came to approach me when I came to practice. So he was already there, and then he approached me, and then we were talking about it, and it was like a sense of pride of what you helped accomplish for Coach Norvell. And I think that speaks to the character of the coach that we have. That somebody's leaving, and while he did get his best play, people would have been like, as bad as fans are talking about Woodson, you would make it believe that Norvell basically told him, you're either going to find a new job or you're going to be fired. And if that was the case, it could be bad blood. But as is the case that most of the times when people have left, they all seem to talk about their time at Florida State while hard with a very good taste still in their mouth. So I think that was interesting to see a guy talk about the defense in the manner in which he talked about it.
Dallas Sports 1977 says that the front 7 on defense is the key.
Always the key. You can protect that. People will argue Alabama's weakness has always been their corners. People will argue that Georgia's weakness is their corners. But both teams' front 7s are so good that they're going to put pressure on your quarterback to make bad throws. But when you look at with Ole Miss, when he's been able to do stuff, like when they've had time and they're able to get to you. So the quarterback can't make great decisions on his back. So that's what you got to have. But I think even then, I'm very curious to what our linebacker room is going to look like when it's all set. Our 2 to 3 deep in the linebacker room. If we somehow stay healthy there, man, we might have a front 7. And I think also Logan was talking about it. I think the key to beating Clemson is not having Fabo hurt and letting hoping that Daryl Jackson and Fitz are everything that we hope they were. We got to remember that and it's a rightful critique because you got to play the games. You don't get to cancel the games because you got people hurt. But let's not overreact. Wake Forest, they put Jared Verse on a pitch count. He didn't play the entire first half. You notice their offense slowed down in the second half when Jared Verse was there. Imagine had he been healthy and been able to play the whole game. Fabian didn't play after that. After I think sometime in the fourth quarter. Actually, it's right around when you look at when LSU really started to make their comeback. There was a play where Fabo, I believe, tackled. I can't think of his name. The quarterback from LSU. He reaches back. Jane Daniels. He reaches back very awkwardly, and that's when he got hurt. And he missed a majority of the season trying to recover from that. So if you actually are healthy in the D line on the D line, you probably are going to beat Clemson. You probably, and then even against Florida, even though Fabo didn't go, if I remember correctly, he was on the side. No, Fabo didn't go in the bowl game. But it's like you're still sitting there looking, and you're like, wow, we are really at D tackle is really where we are weak at. Because I still to this day don't know what Billy Napier was saying. Actually, I saw today, Mark, I saw David Waters. And I told Dave, I said, I'm so grateful that Billy decided that he wanted to throw the ball because we didn't have a thing for for Trevor Etienne and the other guy, man. They were just, I could see why, like Osiris should have been drafted in the first round on the Florida State game alone. It was child abuse, what he was doing to our D tackles. And then they started throwing it, and I'm like, oof, okay, all right, we'll take this all day. So, but I think that's why you went and got Fisk. That's why you got Jackson. That's why they fought so hard to keep Farmer. That's why obviously they wanted to make sure that Fabian Lovett came back. So I think now if we're 2 to 3 deep there at D tackle and we're getting guys developed, now all of a sudden you got a depth that you didn't have before.
Felipe, we appreciate the comment. That would be completely unprecedented, though. It can happen. It's mathematically possible that those 5 teams could go undefeated. They all play in separate conferences, but to have all 5 conference champions go 13-0 through their conference championship games, that would be quite the mathematical anomaly. That's never happened in the history of the game. So,
unfortunately, the Pac-12 or Big 12 champion will be left out.
Yeah, they would get the boot. Yes. Yeah, you would probably have the other 3, and then you would have the SEC championship game loser if that's Georgia losing to Bama with their only loss. There you go. All right, guys, appreciate you being here. Chris, you got anything else?
One more thing.
Yeah,
I did an episode where I let the fans break down the wins and losses for Florida State. For some reason, that episode blew up. People, for some reason, thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing it, but I just thought that people would kind of go, okay, I'm not voting. No, I had over 150 people voting at the time, which was really cool. They had a blast with it. And because someone put up Jordan Travis's odds on the Heisman Trophy.
Yes.
I want to bring up specifics. We're going to do an episode on how Jordan Travis can win a Heisman Trophy and if he can win one without winning a national title. Because if he does, he'll be the first and only Florida State player to ever win a Heisman that did not win the national title in the same year.
My basic thoughts on any Heisman candidacy is it rests on 3 things. Number 1, statistics. You blow people away with stats. Number 2, your team's record. Are you playing for championships? If you're a quarterback for an undefeated team, obviously that puts you in prime position. And number 3, did you have a highlight play or series or something? Down 4 to Clemson, 55 seconds left on the clock. You take your team 75 yards, throw a remarkable game-winning touchdown pass where you dodge 3 guys. Yeah, something memorable to put in people's heads that, oh, wow, he's the guy that did that. Those are, in my eyes, the 3 things that put you in the middle of the Heisman race. And obviously, he's got the name coming into the season and the recognition, and people are expecting him to do big things.
I got to tell you this. If Florida State goes 2 for 3 in that stretch, they're obviously playing for the ACC championship. Jordan Travis would have had the Heisman moment that would have solidified him getting it this past season. And that would have been against Florida when I think he broke 7 tackles en route to a touchdown. That's like, I think you got to have the play, or you got to be like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson beating Florida State 63 to whatever, and Jimbo Fisher making guys sign promise notes that they'll never quit again, which is, to me, is that people think of losing to Jacksonville State is the worst moment in Florida State history. No, a coach having to make players sign a piece of paper promising not to quit was the lowest moment. Because I don't understand that. That's the lowest moment in Florida State history to me. But Lamar Jackson in one game literally solidified, made enough Heisman moments to be able to win it.
Yeah, absolutely. James Coleman, Den Media Group. Get on over there. Check out what James has going. James, what is going on over there?
Well, we finally eclipsed 2,000 subscribers. Great. We gave away $200 to a guy, Jeffrey Bell, and we gave $32 because that's what the likes for that show was to guy Raymond Jones, I believe. I'm sorry, I forgot, but I know it's Raymond. He watches everything. And now we're trying to get to 3,000. We're quite a ways away from 3,000, but that's the new goal. Once we get to 3,000, we'll give away $300 on live on air. And but what we'll do now is, like, anytime I have 50 likes while we're on a live, I'll give away a membership. And then once a month, we're going to start doing, we're going to do a member giveaway, and then we'll do a giveaway live on the show, whether it be a membership or something else that's pretty cool, tailgates. And then when football season, if you're an FSU fan, I would be a member if you don't have tickets, because, well, we're going to give tickets away. So I have 8 regular season tickets that I actually have in a really good seated area, and that's what we'll probably be giving away to each one of those games. And as the channel grows, as we get more stuff, we'll have more opportunities where we'll be doing other giveaways. So I appreciate all the support. Let's try to get to 3,000 as quick as possible.
We just dropped the link to Den Media Group in the chat, so you can go directly there. We will do the same with Spear Addicts. Chris, what's going on there?
Well, I am on the road to getting 3,000 subscribers. I need 82 more people to hit 3,000 subscribers. We have a lot going on, but my next episode, which will be tomorrow night, we are going to break down the possibility of the Heisman run for Jordan, and then the other linear half of that is going to be in depth on what recruiting is going on at Florida State. So if you haven't came or you have not watched the show yet, James Coleman's the co-host. We also have Chip Wesley from Unconquered 850 who comes on as well. I've got a lot of special guests lined up, but I'm holding those off as long as I can. But we'll see what happens in the near future.
All right, everyone. Make it on back here next Wednesday, 6 Eastern, Florida State Seminoles Live. Chris, appreciate you being here, making this happen. James, appreciate you as well. Guys, have a great rest of your week.